the alliterative turn of phrase. But the Tonopons were pretty excited about it. I mean, over 200 people came to a town hall. And we had a delightful time, discussed a lot of the issues, and also in attendance was a video crew from a television network bearing the letters NHK. N as in Nippon. Japanese television joined us. And then a couple of weeks later, given the vagaries of Arizona geography, wouldn't you know, the town that bears the name Maricopa is located across the county line in Pinal, across from Maricopa County. So we go across the county line to Pinal to be in the city of Maricopa. There was a great Sunday afternoon Tea Party rally, and in attendance there was a crew from Dutch television. And then at a gathering of Republican women in Scottsdale, Miss Mary and I attended, and there was a reporter from one of our British cousins. I believe he was from the Daily Telegraph. And he described your speaker thusly. He wrote, and I quote, "Hayworth, the candidate of broad shoulders, excellent vocal projection, and Trump-like hair." Now, fellow citizens, for the record, you will note there are no Velcro attachments here, nor do I have this done up in some sort of turban-like wrap. And if a quick check of the bank account would indicate it is bereft of the millions that the Donald may be able to call on. But we allow our British cousins a certain irreverence. The unflattering description aside, the broader point I'd like to make to you is this. The international journalists who have come here to Arizona to cover this race understand what is at stake for you and me far more readily than those journalists who come from the newsrooms in New York City and from Washington, D.C., with all of the false sophistication that those who report from those locales can muster, those who tend to look at Arizona and the rest of our nation as so much flyover country. No, perhaps because the international journalists come to listen, and perhaps because you are so passionate and so clear of mind and purpose in your endeavors and in your concerns, that the international journalists have returned home to write that what is at stake for America in 2010 is nothing less than this document and the republic it engendered. You probably remember the story from your own schooling. The year 1787, the place, Philadelphia. One of those involved a matriarch of high society in the city of brotherly love. She had her granddaughter in tow when she encountered that unique American who was a printer, an inventor, a humorist, a scientist, an electrifying kite flyer, a diplomat, and one of our founders, who you and I know better as Benjamin Franklin. The story goes, she shouted out to him, "Dr. Franklin, what kind of government have you given us?" And he responded, "A republic, if you can keep it." That admonition rings in our ears and stirs our souls, especially in this year of 2010, and especially in the wake of the inauguration of our 44th president, who ironically has on his resume a designation as a one-time professor of constitutional law, yet who takes actions at odds with your and my understanding of the Constitution. Case in point, very Shortly after his inauguration, he picked up the telephone and called the chief executive officer of what is ostensibly a private corporation, and in essence fired that chief executive officer. You will search in vain in this document for any such designation of that type of power to a president of the United States. Worse still, and just in time for Christmas, treating our legislative branch as little more than an adjunct of the Cook County, Chicago political machine, this president and his administration rammed through a program allegedly dealing with health, but having more to do with acquiring your wealth, the so-called Obamacare. Perhaps in retrospect, we should have seen it coming. This unique hybrid, the street agitation of Saul Alinsky, joined to the ruthless machine-like efficiency of Chicago Cook County politics. That is the change that America brought upon itself in the year 2008. But now, there is a sentiment once again for change, the right kind of change. And over the next few minutes, you and I need to talk about that, and then we'll transform this from a monologue into a dialogue to hear some of your concerns. Mary and I were in her hometown of Yuma. By the way, Mary sends her regards and regrets tonight. It's just that so much time has passed. Bill and I were talking before the meeting. As a good Mississippi State grad, Bill was saying, "Hey, where's Mary?" Since Mary was born down in Mississippi. But I had to explain to Bill that so much time has passed. When you honored me with my first election to the United States House of Representatives, you may recall the picture that appeared on the front of so many newspapers around the country and throughout the world on that first day of a Republican majority in my lifetime. I had then 13-month-old John Micah Hayworth in my arm as we were pledging allegiance there on the floor, preparing to be sworn in. John Micah Hayworth, the baby of the bunch, is now 16. And he's driving. And I offer that as a traffic advisory, but Mary, mindful of her conservative roots, wants you to know that she takes a Reagan-esque approach to parenting. Trust but verify. So she's down the hill tonight, keeping an eye on John Micah, among others. But we were down in Mary's hometown of Yuma very early in this campaign. And certainly before certain television ads started. But one of Mary's high school classmates came up and said, "JD, I understand that you're taking on Senator McCain. But I want to hear more of what you hope to do as our next United States Senator." And you know, I thought about what she had to say, and that was a fair point. But at the same time, the reality of challenging an incumbent is this: you have to clearly define that challenge. So taking to heart the very constructive criticism of Mary's high school classmate, I want to speak of an affirming agenda, but also, so we're all on the same page. If you hear me at points critical of the incumbent, please understand it is not out of personal animus. Instead, I'd ask you to call on your time in school again and remember, no doubt, somewhere along the line, quite possibly in history class, you had a teacher or a professor or an instructor who set up the following request on a test. Something like this: compare and contrast the responses of historical figure A with those of historical figure B with regards to a particular incident in history. When you stop and think about it, a comparison or a contrast is really the essence of a campaign. So when I offer that, it is not offered out of some sort of malicious or malingering maneuver. It's just simply the best way to evaluate.